We have the power to create our reality. The question is, do we believe that, and are our beliefs supporting what we really wish and desire our reality to be? So welcome to this episode where we're going to talk about the power and the impact of our belief systems and how we can start to work with them consciously so that we can start to truly create the life that we want to really be living and coming into the experiences that we really want to be having. So beliefs are a little bit tricky to work with potentially because most of the time they're subconscious. We're not aware actually of our beliefs because they're very hidden to our conscious awareness, our conscious mind, and our conscious kind of reality. So oftentimes what we're attracting, what we're creating, what we're experiencing, because we're always creating, we are creative beings innately. And so we're always creating. The key is we want to start to navigate what we want to create versus just creating from our subconscious and constantly dealing with, recovering from, and healing from, the traumatic dramas and experiences and traumas that we're experiencing, or challenges that we're having, and not maybe necessarily need to have them. Now, to some degree in this Earth school, we do need some experiences. This is still an experiential school. The thing, though, is as we start to enter more into this higher consciousness of 5D, and we become more soul aligned and we become more heart centered, we embrace our sovereignty. We become more truly empowered in our personal power. That means that we have more access and ability to start to create the reality that we want. And that includes for us individually, and that includes what we want to see, collectively. What do we want to see happen in this whole next phase of the experience of Earth itself and for humanity? So let's start first with understanding it from ourselves, our own personal perspective. The thing with beliefs is that we inherit them. We inherit them through our genetic makeup. And again, that's why we sometimes aren't even aware of what we're experiencing from a belief perspective. So we inherit it from that. We can inherit it from our own experiences. We've experienced something and that creates a belief. We can bring in beliefs from our previous lives where there's something we've chosen to experience, had an experience of, and there's programming around something, and that's created a belief. Not all beliefs are negative, right? Some beliefs, we want to cultivate more of our positive beliefs, and some beliefs are absolutely amazing. The thing is that whatever our true reality is, truly is based on our belief systems. Whatever our story narrative is what our experience will be, and that cultivates our thoughts. We're vibing that out, therefore we're attracting that from the kind of universal response system. So keeping in mind that the universe itself and how it responds to us is neutral in nature because of the free will principle. So that means that if it wasn't neutral, then we wouldn't be able to exercise our free will, and therefore we wouldn't have the process of entering and becoming sovereign. So this is sometimes really difficult to understand, especially if we're going through a challenging period. Like we can feel like, we're not supported, or we're not heard, or we're not, being taken care of in some way. This is part of this specific unique experience of Earth School, because Earth School is a very unique experience. And it is one where we are really coming into being, we are coming into being sovereign. We are sovereign. Let me backtrack. We are sovereign. We're coming into the remembering that we are sovereign. And in order to claim that sovereignty and embody it, we have to remember it, and then we have to choose to embrace it. And so again, sometimes we'll have beliefs that will be inherent in our subconscious that have been set up throughout, kind of the previous paradigm consciousness for different reasons that could be contrary to that, so that we don't claim our sovereignty. And there can also just be, again, residue of beliefs that have come through from previous experiences where we can start to believe it's not possible. Certain things aren't possible. So it does take a little bit of effort and consistency to work with our beliefs because, especially at first, sometimes it can feel like there's just a lot of density there. And there is. There is a lot of density often in our primitive beliefs, which is predominantly what we've been operating from in our previous paradigm. So as we start to become more aware of our beliefs, that's when we can start to decide, is this belief serving my values, serving my wishes and desires of my ideal life and of my ideal expression of who I am, or who I want to come into more of, more of an alignment to, or more of an expression of, and or not. And so we get to start to work with that. So the thing with beliefs, though, is that they're extremely insidious and hidden from us. And I say insidious because oftentimes, again, some of that setup of our basic previous conditioning and consciousness was very much about a setup to keep us limited or suppressed. Or we were based on a consciousness or a platform because of where we were at in the evolutionary recent history. It sets us up for suffering or for struggle or for kind of inequality. And so we have a lot of beliefs, again, that we're not necessarily aware of, but we're vibing them out in our subconscious. So there's an actual pattern that we want to kind of identify when we're dealing with beliefs so that we can start to be aware of how to disrupt this actual pattern. Okay, so this is the pattern. It's kind of like a loop pattern. So we have a belief system, and we're going to talk in a second about, again, how to extract that from our subconscious. So we have a belief. That belief runs throughout all our, kind of experiences, all the years of our incarnation. It's running, and that creates patterns. So we might see we have specific experiences, or we're attracting specific people, or we're attracting certain things, or experiencing certain things. And if we look back over our life, we can see there's been a consistency, maybe a little bit of different flavors, like not exactly the same experience, but definitely a theme and outcome that's very familiar and very similar. That is a resulting pattern that's set up from belief systems. And it can be a belief, or it can be belief systems. So we have a belief, then we have a pattern, and then we vibe out what our beliefs are subconsciously, oftentimes unknowingly, and we have a specific experience as a result of that. That then reinforces our belief, so it becomes kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. As we become more aware of the beliefs, that can actually really be a detriment, in the sense that it can really start to reinforce even consciously. See, I knew that person would let me down, or I knew, because that would be a belief as an example. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to start to disrupt this pattern, this looping pattern, and pattern is in this loop. Okay, so belief, pattern, experience reinforces the belief. So some beliefs are very embedded in us, and they're very deeply entrenched in our subconscious. Okay, so the reason why we don't necessarily know what we're vibing out with our beliefs is because, again, sometimes they're inherited. So it's said that we actually inherit the belief of certain conditions and diseases and illnesses, not necessarily the actual illness itself. We inherit the beliefs that create the emotional or energetic setup that we then start to attract certain patterns that then create symptoms in our body, or we attract certain relationships based on that. Okay, so I won't go too much in this episode today about energy and how that works. Just, kind of, be open if that resonates, to just know that there's many reasons why we have beliefs. That most important thing is starting to identify what our beliefs are, so that we can choose if we want to continue with them, or we can choose that we don't want to continue with them, and then we create new ones. The key is disrupting this pattern so that we can then start to really get clear on starting to be a conscious creator and cultivating, working our beliefs in favor and in support of what we want to experience. So how we start to identify our beliefs, we can do this a couple different ways. So one is we can actually literally sit down and go through all different types of categories of beliefs. What do I believe about humanity? What do I believe about myself? Do I believe I'm good enough? Do I believe I can do something? Do I believe I'm capable of that? What do I believe about the state of the world? What do I believe about health? What do I believe about sexuality? What do I believe about potential? So we can go through all different categories. What do I believe about money? What do I believe about safety? What do I believe about relationships? What do I believe about my family? What do I believe about myself in relation to my family? So we can look at beliefs as actual beliefs in relation to a thing or a person or an experience. And then we can also ask, what do I believe about this particular perspective? What do I believe about this particular experience? So the key is we want to start to become aware. So say I'm going through a category and I'm asking, what do I believe about safety? Then I would go through well, I believe I can only be safe if, and then I would fill in the blank. Or I believe I can only be safe if I do everything myself. So maybe that's a belief that I have, and then I would ask, well, do I want to believe that? Is that actually true? And that's the question we want to ask ourselves too. We want to challenge our beliefs. Why do we believe that? Is this something that really feels true to me now and in alignment to me now? Does that resonate with me now? And if it doesn't, or we don't want to believe that anymore, then we can literally cross it out and then create another belief in place of that and start to cultivate that belief as an affirmation. Most importantly, starting to ask, what would it feel like if I had this new belief? If I believed I am completely loved and supported by the universe and therefore I am safe. If I could start to really feel into that, then I'm really starting to cultivate that new belief system. The invitation for us as we're doing this is to be patient with ourselves, because we're literally reconditioning our physiology as well to be able to create these new patterns and new pathways literally in our physiology. So the most important thing is continuing to just nurture that new belief system daily until we are then in that experience or having, this new way of being and this new way of relating to things. Sometimes our experiences that we're in are the way that we actually start to see a belief. Again, we can review different categories of beliefs. We can also look at, we were talking about before, the pattern. If I look back on a pattern I've had around relationships, that's revealing to me I must have a belief system somewhere that's supporting my experience in relationships, or I wouldn't be having the experiences consistently I'm having in relationship. We don't always necessarily anymore need to even know why. What we want to do is identify the belief so that we can then cancel that and then create a new belief in place of it. And most importantly, get into alignment of the feeling that would be supporting that belief. But sometimes the awareness alone, depending on how entrenched the belief is, sometimes the awareness alone is enough to actually transmute or, kind of cancel or clear out that belief. Sometimes it isn't. Sometimes we need to work through it a little bit more with a little bit more consistency to create a new belief system. If you're creating a belief system that is, just feels really unrealistic to you, it's just really not vibing with you, then start with something that feels very sort of doable, or we can kind of get into that. Like, it's not something we want to feel like I feel like I'm lying to myself every time I'm saying this new belief. It totally doesn't feel palatable to me at all. Then we definitely don't want to start with that. We want to start with something that is, we can baby step it. So we want to start with something that does feel very okay for us to start to work with and start to play with. Even if at first it still feels like, I don't know if that's possible, but I'm going to be open to it being possible. So that could be the new belief system. I now believe I am open to experiencing something different. Always we can ask for support too. We have so much support available to us because of free will. We need to ask them to help us. So it could also be, please show me gently and lovingly a belief that I have that is interfering with my, best potential expression and life that I really want to experience. help to bring it into my conscious awareness, what is unconscious, so that I can then start to step more into, what I'm really here to experience at my highest good and my highest potential. So the other way we can look at it, so we can look at it individual beliefs, we can look at it through patterns, and then we can start to also look at other ways that we can look at it in ways of beliefs that we've potentially been given. So, what do I believe about religion? What do I believe about our healthcare system? What do I believe about politics? And so again, where have these beliefs come from? Are they conditioning, or do they actually ring true to me? So again, that's another way to approach it. That's similar to the category of our beliefs, but some of our beliefs are personal, and some of our beliefs we've actually been conditioned with through our culture, through the generation we were raised in, through the family we've been raised in, through the lineage that we come through. So again, there can be a lot of complexity with it. The most important thing is we want to start to look at our environment as an expression of ourselves. So we want, and this takes a bit of time to kind of translate it. Number one, we need to be in awareness of it. We need to start to get on our radar to be able to step back and say, okay, if this is showing up in my energy field, if this is showing up in my experience in any way, that means I must have something vibing out in my subconscious that is bringing that into my energy field or bringing that into my actual interaction. So I'll give you an example. So one day I was out at a outside garden center, and this was the time we were in kind of like the real heavy experience of COVID, and that's when the mask mandate was going on. And so I was outside, and I was at the cash register, and there was like a younger person working the till. So like just, kind of school student working the till, the cash. So then somebody came up to pay for something, and they didn't have a mask on. Somebody else saw this and came up to the student at the cash and started just, very angry with this person that they allowed this person to come up and not be wearing a mask. Well, this person, the young student, was completely like petrified and kind of mortified and very shocked. It's like, they didn't know necessarily to be able to do with anything. Well, so for me in this experience, I was just witnessing this whole thing happen. It just kind of like really kind of happened fast. It was like I was kind of like back a little bit in the garden center. It was something that caught my attention though, because it was an angry exchange. There was a bit of injustice energy in that, but it was very like bully energy too. There was a lot of anger in it. So what I did is, I started to ask myself, this showed up in my experience, even though it actually didn't happen directly to me, I still witnessed it, which means it's still in my energy field. That's telling me I have something that I'm vibing out, or do I have a belief about something that's revealing to me? So I started to inquire within myself and discovered I did. I had some beliefs around some things around that. So that gave me an opportunity to read my environment and be able to bring it back to myself and say, okay, so why was this in my experience? Why was this showing up? We want to, and I use that as an example because it's not always happening directly to us, but if it's in our energy field, there's potentially an opportunity for us to discover something within ourselves. And that's the key. We want to discover what is really vibing in our unconscious so that we can really start to change it, create, and be more conscious. So when we start to look at our environment as information, it's a game changer, because one thing for sure, it helps us to step back and be more neutral about it. So that helps us to be more neutral. It helps us just to be more calm, where we also have this moment where we can kind of pause and reflect a little bit about, okay, so how do I want to respond here? Do I want to check this out within myself first, then maybe respond? Or even if we have a reaction in that moment, invitation would still be, okay, so why is this showing up for me? Again, not being really over analytical in the mind. We just want to start to be able to read the environment, that it's revealing something to us. Because our beliefs are so hidden, that's usually a beautiful, amazing, fast, quick, powerful way to really get into the awareness of, wow, I have something vibing here and I had no idea I did. And now I can, start to feel really empowered by starting to create those changes so that I can start creating the experience I want. The other thing is we want to really be clear on what we do want. And sometimes we get clear on what we want by knowing what we don't want. So that's the other thing. If something's showing up in my energy field or something's showing up in my world, in my relationships, or I'm responding in some way, I'm feeling something about it, it's helping me to get clear. Like, maybe I don't want this anymore. So do I have any beliefs that are creating that or attracting that? And what is this helping me to see that I want more of? So if I don't want to be treated anymore in a specific way, how do I want to be treated? So it's starting to help me to be more clear on what I actually do want. And so that's sometimes the process also. And then we can support ourselves creating beliefs to support what we want. So if I want more joy, then I want to start to cultivate beliefs around joy. I believe it's possible to be joyful. I believe that I'm going to attract joyful experiences. I believe I'm capable of being aware of the joy I already experienced that maybe I haven't seen before. So that's an example of starting to just, gently and lovingly and lightly start to work with ourselves with the beliefs. So when we, again, look at our environment, bring it back to ourselves, then we can start to be aware, more clear what's happening so that we can get more clear on what we don't want, get more clear on what we do want, because awareness truly is the key. Awareness is truly the key to everything. So again, we can ask if we don't know, to be gently and lovingly shown. But we also want to really ask, like, what are our wishes and desires? And is there a gap? My experience, my reality is here, but I want it to be over here. So what do I need to start to do to get this gap filled up in relation to my beliefs? So that's some of the way that we can start to relate to it. I'm here, but I want to be here. Because oftentimes we're here and we can just get completely frustrated about where we're at. Or, so often why it's hard to keep things in our awareness is because we're dealing with, the mundane of everyday life. We could be dealing with incredible challenges, griefs, pains, struggles, fears, all these things. So we're really needing or being invited to start to cultivate more time through our day of even amongst what we're experiencing, if it's not what we want to be experiencing, how can I start to give more energy to what I actually want to create in my life and what I want to live? So what would my ideal life look like? And what are my wishes and desires? Do I believe that's possible? Do I believe I'm deserving to have that life that I want? So these are also some of the beliefs that we want to potentially look at. And then we can start to move towards filling in that gap. So again, the awareness is also important when we're starting to disrupt that belief loop, right? So again, the belief loop is this belief, we create patterns, or we create these experiences, and then that reinforces the belief system. So what beliefs do we now want to start to bring in and to create? It's a really powerful, it can be really fun. It's a really powerful way to start to activate our conscious creatorship, but the key is have fun with it. Like, we're creating. So it could be, we experiment with some things and be playful about it and be gentle with ourselves so that, if we're moving along and then we get kind of sidestepped. And oftentimes when we are working with beliefs at first, we can get sidestepped because we feel like I'm doing the work and it's not happening. So we want to try and, again, if it's not happening, why isn't it happening? Do I have a belief system here, or am I just being impatient? It takes some time to start to really shift things vibrationally. And that would be something we're asking. I'm changing the belief system. Is there anything else I can do to support myself? So do I need to get more into alignment of the vibe, the feeling that I want to experience while still being in the present moment? So beliefs is a huge piece of that. And it could be even literally starting to write out, I'm creating a new narrative for myself. I'm creating a new story for myself. I have the pen or the pencil to create and to write my own story, my new narrative of what I want to experience moving forward. And it's unlimited. It's truly unlimited when we're in alignment to our hearts, to our soul, and we're really in that alignment authentically. Then we can actually we have the power to tap into that infinite consciousness of all possibles, all things are possible, are all possibilities. So the key is for us to have some fun, bring some lightness into it. And we're coming, there's so much heaviness, so much pain and struggle still happening, potentially within our relationships, within our family, definitely on the collective. So sometimes really just stepping back and cultivating and asking, how can I just bring in some more playfulness, some more lightness, and playing with this, just activate the imagination and activate, just the potential again to just tap into dreaming, staying present in the moment, but dreaming about like what's possible. And if we don't know, because the ego cannot fathom what it has not experienced. So that's another reason why our beliefs stay so prevalent for us, because and hard to kind of shake, because the ego mind, we got to bring the ego mind, the personality needs to be able to buy into it too. So, but the ego can't fathom what it hasn't experienced. And so there it keeps defaulting back into what it has experienced. And that just reinforces the belief system. So if we don't know what's possible, ask, show me and help me to feel what is possible. And we don't have to always know the form. It can be a feeling. And most importantly, actually, when we're creating, we want to first and foremost get into the vibe of it, right? And then we're not limiting ourselves with a specific form, but it's how we're manifesting now in this new consciousness is very different. It's about alignment, and my alignment is then going to create my outer. So remember, the outer is always going to reflect our inner. And so that's, again, when we want to work on a different vibration. So it's beliefs and it's our vibration too. If I'm experiencing something, that's telling me that must be on some level the alignment that's trumping, that is, kind of really taking over and attracting the experience I'm having. So it's an opportunity, so again, to bring more awareness. And then, move the energy if we need to, if there's energy there that needs to be shifted and moved, and then, work on the beliefs if there's beliefs there that are supporting it. And having fun with it, and just being open and keep asking, show me, help me to feel what's possible. Help me to feel, or help me to see, or help me to be open, even to believing that things can be different, whether that's within ourselves or whether that's within, the collective or humanity or Earth itself. Anything is possible, because we have the pen to create our new script, and that is both within and in the outer and the collective as well. All right, so I hope you enjoy your process of discovering your beliefs, and I hope you have a beautiful day. Namaste.